Let's get started here. Let me make sure that I can getting a readout here. Will you say something?
Well, sure.
Okay.
Are we ready to start?
We're ready to start. Okay. All right. This is Cooperative Legacy Project interview number 8. We're visiting with Joan Hafner, longtime St. John's Farmers Union local education director and recipient of the Farmers Union Meritorious Service Award and the Minnie Lovinger Eminent Educator Award. Joan, where and when were you born?
London, England, in 1922.
Okay.
I'm going to make a correction first. I don't use the Hafner clute.
You don't anymore, okay.
Well, I never did. I never legally was clute. I didn't change.
Oh,
legally, I didn't.
Okay. All right.
Socially, when I went with him, it was Mrs. Clute. And in his church, it was Mrs. Clute.
Okay.
But I had not changed. You don't have to change my name legally when you get married.
Yeah, that's right.
So I didn't.
That's right. That's right. You
yes.
actually have to do that if you want to do it. You know, it's not automatic.
There were business
okay.
reasons at the time. We kept things. We both had grown kids, so we both had business affairs.
Sure.
So we kept the names separate except for social and religious reasons.
Okay.
But from there, 1922, January.
Mm-hmm. And do you have brothers and sisters?
My brother was killed in the Air Force in 55. My sister's still living.
Okay, is she in England?
Yes.
Okay.
She was 20 years in Canada, but she was determined that when she retired, she was going back home.
Mm-hmm.
Uncle Bill in Manitoba, he was determined. He'd always say to her, "You're going to take citizenship." No, she was going home. And she did.
So, where did you grow up at then?
I was in London until I was about 5 or 6.
Okay.
And that was 28. And Daddy saw the crash. The crash, the depression was worldwide.
Oh, yeah.
Daddy had, I think, a taxi business of some kind, and he saw his capital drop by half overnight.
Mm-hmm.
And he's told Mother famous last words, they're going to get as far away as possible, and people will always need food. So he emigrated to Australia.
Australia?
Yeah, with Mother and the 3 kids.
Whoa. Okay.
My sister was pretty small. I just remember the trip. We went, at that time, around the Cape of Good Hope, Africa. I remember landing there. And they've got a picture of my brother and I up on the top of Table Mountain. And we were there 5 years. And, of course, the Depression hit there, too. More famous last words, I remember Daddy cussing that he had enough wheat out there to feed the city of London. He couldn't raise enough money to ship it.
So, what do you remember from that other than that?
Oh, fun. We went the first year and a half. Mother homeschooled us. And at that time, Australia had a mail system. They would send you 2 weeks' lessons. And either an older sibling or a parent would give them to you. Then they got mailed back and corrected, and you got another set. And we did that for a couple of years. We were always jealous of my sisters, because she being little, she always got the pretty puzzle ones. Mm-hmm. But it apparently worked. And then we got to going to a little country school, rather similar to the country schools here, except we rode ponies. A neighbor offered my dad an old pony that his kids had ridden, guaranteed good for kids. Well, I'm no dummy. I never learned to ride on the back. Jeff always had to ride the back. He was a year and a half younger, so I had to learn. But we rode that pony to school for 3 years. And some of the older boys would drive a little sulky with his younger siblings.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing I remember about that particular school, there was a law that if the temperature got 106, school closed. Well, when it got over 100, naturally the kids are watching it. The minute it had the 106, stampede for the door. Nothing the instructor could do about it. But what we did, typical kid, we rode home in that heat. Mother was furious. We didn't know the difference. We're going home. We got the pony and we rode, I think, 3 or 4 miles in that 100. I don't think we took any ill effect, just that Mother was furious. She thought they ought to know better. Well, there was nothing the man could do about it. It said he closes the school at 106. Didn't tell him what he's supposed to do with the kids. Oh.
So what part of Australia was this?
Western Australia.
Western
About
Australia.
250 miles from Perth.
Okay.
Sandy soil. Wheat and sheep. When we got home from school, we were supposed to take the sheep down to the stock dam. And that's where I learned to swim. He taught us all to swim in the stock dam. We could all swim. Go swimming on Christmas Day because it's that side of the equator. It was a time we kids had a ball and Mother had a very hard time. A little house. We did have a little house similar to the South Dakota houses, but a bit smaller. But a lot of people had shacks.
It's a lot different than London.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
And Mom was a London girl through and through. To the end of her days, she wasn't happy out of a city, but she stuck it. And about 5 years of that, and Daddy had enough. And the story I heard, I didn't know it at the time, but the story I heard afterwards was that he sold his life insurance to get us out of there. And we got back to England, and this time we went through the Indian Ocean, up through the Suez Canal, we stopped one night in what's now Sri Lanka. It was Ceylon. We stayed one day, I think one night there. And we got to gawk at the monkeys because they gawked back. We got to go barefooted through a Buddhist temple. And my brother and I thought it was hilarious because Daddy had to take his shoes off. Because we had the shoes off right now. I remember going through the canal, Suez Canal. It was very hot. Camels on the skyline. Daddy wouldn't let us off the ship in Cairo for some, I think, an epidemic or something of the health reason. And all the little boats would come out to sell you stuff. I think I got some beads there. In Malta, we did get off a ship. We spent the day there touring. No cows on the island. At that time, too little. Lots of small ponies. And we watched the fleet come in and out. 8 or 10 beautiful warships sailing into the harbor. Exciting.
Yeah.
He got us up about 4 in the morning to see the Rock of Gibraltar because they went by it but didn't stop. And he said we had to see it. Dad was into the schooling. He had my brother and I keep a journal of all these things, you see. We learned to write our experiences. We learned to take notice. So we had a good background on it before we ever got out of grade school. And we got back into southern England, and at first with Grandpa. He was living then. Grandma had died shortly before we got there. Because the way they told me afterwards, I know that one of the uncles was waiting for us at the dock, and he got to break it to Daddy that he wasn't in time. But I didn't know any of that at the time. We were talking about this joke just tonight with the in-laws. He left Mother and the kids by Grandpa's. Well, he went out to rent a little farm, which wasn't easy to do, but he did find a little farm. And he was there for several weeks by himself.
How little is little in England?
For us, it was 50 acres. But see, it's different at home. It was very different. I know he had 50 acres when I come here across, trying to farm 2 quarters, you see. That's about, it's different now than it was then here. But that was it, that if you had a couple of acres at home, you were rich. But what I was going to say was he'd gone ahead of us by several weeks, and Mother must have arrived there a day early or something, because when she walked in, he's eating his fried eggs out of a skillet. Oh! Probably had every other dish in the house dirty. So we were there. We milked cows, fed chickens, slopped hogs. We had to walk a mile to the school bus to catch it, and then we'd get the bus for another 2 or 3 miles it was. But if we got going late and we missed the bus, we didn't turn around and go home. We kept walking for school. And with no funny business when Daddy was around. And that went on till 8th grade. Most of us quit then. My sister got sent into town to go to school because she was sickly, and they sort of scratched together a sacrifice so she should get schooling because she could never do heavy work like my brother and I.
Mm-hmm.
She grew out of it eventually, so at 14 started looking. At 15 I went out to work as a hired girl, and my brother stayed home to help farm.
Mm-hmm. Was this fairly common for people not to go on to school unless they were wealthy and went to public schools?
That's right.
No.
That's right. Well, even around here, an awful lot of my generation didn't go to high school.
Yeah.
Well, same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Same depression.
Mm-hmm.
Same problems almost, except the size varied so much. And then, well, I started working and went home. And then when the war for us started in September of 39.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I think I stuck where I was for a few months. And I wanted to go into the women's service. I was 17.
Yeah.
And Dad threw conniption fits and decided there was plenty of work at farm. If the boys were being called up, I should go home and farm.
Mm-hmm.
So then I went home to farm. At the time, my brother was still home. He went into the Air Force when he was old enough. And when it got, let me think, that was 39.
Mm-hmm.
And we were...
Did you really believe in 38 that when they did the Munich Agreement that they were going to prevent a war, or did you think that it wasn't going to work?
At 16, I didn't give a you-know-what. But I heard the men folk, when Daddy would, if he had company, I think there was a lot of muttering. I remember them talking, there was some resignations in Parliament over it. A difference of opinion on that level as to whether we should do something or not. And apparently Chamberlain's view prevailed, but he got a number of reservations from his cabinet even, because they firmly disagreed. They knew it would come to more. The one who vocally out loud and publicly disagreed, of course, was old Churchill. But nobody listened to him, not at the time. Well, let's see, when did I go back? I think they called it a phony war for the first few months. They shipped guys over to France, of course, immediately. But there wasn't an awful lot of activity in 39. A lot of getting ready, a lot of chasing around, a lot of signing up. Then in 40, all hell broke loose. And I'm reviewing some history for you here, otherwise it doesn't tie in. Hitler's armies went around the line that they were supposed to be able to not go through. Came down through Holland, where they flooded the land thinking that it stopped it, and he forethought it came with little boats. Down through Belgium, and about the same time, he made a breakthrough on the other end of the line and came like this. So that when the Germans come down like this, and Belgium collapses like this, the British are out of this shape. This is why they retreat to Dunkirk. And the stories, of course, every little ship could put out, went out. There were stories of going out with little boats and bringing home 2 guys at a time and dumping off and go back and getting others. One of the guys that came back said the big ships came, but they couldn't get in close enough. If you could swim a mile, he said he and his buddy swam a mile out. But mostly you had to wait for little ships to ferry. So it was a mess. And that particular individual was going to live to see the march through Berlin because he got through, but his buddy was machine gunned in the water beside him. You know, some of them. Anyway, that was a mess. That wasn't really but what it ended up was where we were, 15 miles from the coast on a little farm way over pretty well west. We're 72 miles from the enemy coast, 15 miles from our own coast, and here the enemy planes go over every night.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't looking for us. We'd hear them go over, but we'd hear the tones get involved.
Yeah.
And then there was one story, which I didn't witness, but it was very common at the time, that the fighter planes would come in and machine gun the streets of any of the ports where there might be preparatory, so that the place was a mess. And the background to Churchill's would fight them on the beaches.
Yeah.
When the guys came back from Dunkirk, they told motorcycles are common at home. They told stories of German patrols, maybe 4, 6, 8 men on a motorcycle, and where the sidecar where you put the kids in peacetime was a little rack with a machine gun. And they would come in one end of the village with guns blazing, exit everybody the other way, blocking the traffic, of course, but also giving them immediate access to any gas, food, whatever was available. They just swept through. And this is when Churchill comes on the radio and says, we're going to fight them every step. And they put out this, what they called at that time local defense volunteers, what they came to be the Home Guard. And they were swamped. They were swamped. I know it was supposed to be anybody over 17 at any age up. And the thing I remember of that was my brother sitting and saying to Dad, I'd be 17 tomorrow. Oh, okay. This was spring and his birthday was in fall. So he was 16, 17.
Yeah.
He'd be 17 tomorrow. So they went down together. And then we got a lot with that Home Guard of retired military men. And I mean 70, not who then frequently took over because of their experience. And the old Major General in our vicinity put Dad as a platoon commander. And a platoon for us was not a number of men. It was an area of land.
Okay.
It encompassed, in our case, 4 villages and about 28 able-bodied men. But this was our platoon. And so Daddy went down and got to another farmer who was well known, and them two went out. Apparently they went in their working clothes, and old John Fisher subbied had an old straw hat. They looked like a pair of brigands, somebody said. For recruiting sergeants, you're the biggest pair of brigands I ever saw. Because or in spite of or just because they didn't get many refusals, they ended up, within a week, they had 28 men signed up, organized, but no arms. There were a few shotguns, almost no rifles, hell of a lot of pitchforks. And our assignment was not to attack. We were in hilly country, an outpost on the top of the hill, which happened to be about 3/4 mile from our farmhouse, and watched for the land. Because although it's a small island, there are empty spaces. So they figured that in the daytime, there's enough people around. Midnight, probably nobody's coming. But in the dark of twilight and dawn, dusk and dawn, what we call it, watch for landing. Unless it's a very small group, ignore them and then notify so that what was left of the army would know it very soon. They couldn't get organized and attack anything. If they did get organized and came through our territory, let them go by and try and get the last vehicle. On the theory that if every village they went through got the last vehicle, they'd be in poor shape before they got it. Whether it would have worked, we'd never know. Any Navy boys that came on leave used to say, oh, you ain't going to get them. We got to get them first. There were rumors, and these were unsubstantiated, but knowing those devils, that somewhere along the line there was a probing landed tried, and they pulled what we call a Francis Drake. You know what a Francis Drake is?
I've heard of Francis Drake.
You set fire to the water. He sent the flaming ships down to the Armada. So they allegedly they poured oil on the water and set fire to it. Now whether they did or not, or whether they just threatened to, All right. The next, there were a lot of stories I could tell you on that. We'd be here all day, but I will tell you what. My first introduction to the Yanks. Daddy was the local commander, so I was used to being his secretary, and somebody drove in outside for 4 cheap hats or 6-arm beds, junk stuff. Mm-hmm. And all at once the van drives in, Daddy's gone, so I got waltzing out, what have we got today, sir? Beschooled. I've got rifles. 30 rifles. I think I took 3 of those in my arms and carried them to the house, cried all the way. They were World War I rifles that old FDR had sent over. I think we traded some old destroyers for them or something. But I said the first Yank I ever fell for was a rifle. And they were banded with a red band on because either they were 300s and ours were 303s or vice versa. There was just that much difference in the ammunition. Mm-hmm. So then we had a rifle for every man. This was, I don't know, it was sometime in 40, but it wasn't right at the beginning, sometime in the summer. So that's my memory of that.
Yeah, that would be the Lend-Lease program.
Yes. Yeah, they say FDR, I think Lend-Lease. Because what they had done, which is not as common, you know, before Lend-Lease, they had cash and carry. Mm-hmm. Anything you could sell. Apparently a lot of manufacturing secrets changed hand on that. Mm-hmm. Sold them over here and took arms back. There's still one American Air Force base that's on a lease. Gander Air Force Base, 99-year lease. Okay. Well, it's got 30 years to run, so I won't see what happens. So does, I was reminded of it when Hong Kong went. Mm-hmm. See, that was on a long lease.
Yeah.
They would come up with 99 years. I think there was one somewhere in the Caribbean too, but it's Gander that I remember. Mm-hmm. And they dealed up. He got these 50 ships and access to this and that and the other, but the Americans got the lease. And what they do when the 99 years runs out, I don't know. I hope they don't do like, see, the Suez Canal was on a lease too. And then they go to war over it 12 years before the lease runs out. Now that's idiotic. They ended up sinking ships in the canal and not able to use the stupid thing. Mm-hmm. But somebody got this nationalist notion they had to throw out the British and the French who had built it. It was a French engineer that built that. And that was just 12 years before the lease ran out. That's stupidity. However, I hope they don't do that again. Where did we get? Well, anyway, when I remember the first victories in North Africa, because the bells, church bells, had been silent all year. They were only rung in case of landing. Mm-hmm. When the first victory was somewhere in Tunisia, somewhere there where the Americans and British came together. Mm-hmm. Then we were allowed to ring the bells that morning. All morning the church bells rang all over the country.
Yeah. What was the attitude at Pearl Harbor? Maybe a little different than it was here because...
Oh, Lord, yes. Oh, Lord, yes. Dad came in, he heard it at milking time in the morning. He comes and he says, now they've got to come in. Mm-hmm. Not that we welcome the destruction of anybody's fleet unless it happened to be Hitler's. But now we know they'll come in.
Yeah, I was just interviewing a guy here last week, or actually early this week, who still knew the words to a song that a kid had written up in Brown County called "Stay This Side of the Pond." It was a "Don't Go to War" song from about 1939, I suppose.
Oh, I think in 40 they were against it.
Yeah.
Kathy?
Yes, dear.
I'm talking too much. I need a cup of tea. Can you manage?
I just put coffee on.
Oh, I'll settle for coffee.
It'll be ready in just a minute.
Wonderful. And you're a good kid.
Oh, yeah. Here I am. 58 years old. Find me a good...
We didn't see much of the bombing. I had cousins in London who had kids about junior high, probably. Mm-hmm. And she complained. She'd come down when she could, just for a break, that them little devils, they would spend the night in the shelter and then get up the next morning and go out looking for pieces of bombs for souvenirs. Well, you know, 10, 12-year-old boys. We saw, if we went into town, particularly the county, the seaside town, we see the remains of some houses that got. The nearest we got was an 8-foot armor piece in probably now Wheatfield. Yeah, well, we're that far from the coast, somebody misflown, jettisoned. We were cutting wheat. You know, the old binder, pull-type binder.
Yeah.
And a bunch of us going behind setting up the stocks. All at once, the guy on the tractor's teenager, too young for service. The guy on the binder is a World War I man. And he, yeah, you so-and-so, you went over a bomb threader. Remember Kelly? Kathy? You remember old Kelly?
Yeah.
Well, this was him.
Oh.
Well, because the teenager replies with the teenage version of "You silly old fool," and they make enough fuss that Daddy comes down. Well, Kelly ought to know a bomb crater if he sees one. So they driven over it. They really had. He chases us all out. My brother and I are mad because we don't get to stay and watch. Send for the bomb disposal rod from the nearest military headquarters, and they dig out this 8-foot armor piece of bomb. What happened to the teenager, we don't know, but I think Kelly drank beer in the local pub for weeks on that story. You drive over a bomb crater with a binder? You gotta be stupid. But that was the closest we got to a person. And then, I think it was the fall of 41 where we got up close and personal. Daddy was a local commander. The platoon were at least half either too young or too old. And the rest, there were a couple of active, healthy guys who were in some reserved occupation that joined us, but the other guys would have been not fit for service. So some of them were klutzy. And they were actually in trenches that they built to defeat the Romans, which ran like this. And Daddy's in here with the instructing with whoever's taking his turn, and the others are up here, so it was safe enough. And this particular individual throws it out, but instead of throwing it out, he throws it so it falls back at their feet. And it gets, unfortunately, taken up in grass, 7-minute grenade. Daddy got it and threw it out, but it went off as it left his head. So he's off to here, and this hand, this is all that's left. And they come running back somebody comes running back to the house, of course. By the time I saw him, I was their local first aid party, I and my buddy. But by the time I saw him, the men had used their field bandages to bind him up. He's fussing and muttering until I finally figure out what's fussing him. The men, the grenades, where are the other grenades, you see? Well, when I check, give him a box to set it on. Yeah, you set it on there. When I check the situation to find out that Sergeant Perkins has gathered up the grenades safely, then he settles down. But he's bleeding. So they bring him down to the house. Can't make the turn into the porch, so they set the stretcher on the ground. It's November, but it wasn't real cold. And I'm dealing with these pressure. Well, they don't teach this pressure books anymore, but that time they taught these. And you can only hold them about 12 minutes. You know about pressure books. So my brother's still home. He isn't gone yet. When I get tired, he puts his hands over mine, and we take turns for about an hour before the ambulance gets there. So that was the end of milking cows. He closed up most of the farming and went into something else. But you kneel on the ground with a man's lifeblood in your head, it's a little tricky. we had a lighter occasion. And this was daytime. The guys were threshing. Stack thresh at home. You know, the climate's different, so you gather all the sheaves up in a pile, and then you go out in the fall and thresh on the spot.
Mm-hmm.
So there's 8 or 10 guys with pitchforks, obviously, including my brother. So it had to be before he was 18. And here, is that your phone, Kathy?
I'll look for it.
Somebody's phone. It had to be Battle of Britain time because there was dogfights overhead. We were on the edge of it, but you saw some of
This would
it.
have been, what, about August of 1940 then?
It had to be.
Yeah.
This was before the other. I haven't got my sequences right. It was before the other.
Okay.
But one of the planes bailed. One of the pilots bailed out. Well, you can tell which plane is which. It was the German pilot. He comes down in the middle of a wood, which to him, I imagine, looked like the middle of no place. And the guys just grabbed their pitchforks and run. And you imagine the guy's surprise. He comes down in the middle of nowhere, and by the time he can get the parachute untitled, he's surrounded by dirty-looking fellas with pitchforks. Oh, about the time I arrive on the scene, they said the funniest, Dad comes running out, take Jeff his rifle. Jeff's my brother. And away he goes. I'm told afterwards the funny side of the war is seeing me running cross country with Jeff's rifle and a mandolin. At 18, you do a lot of funny things. Anyway, by the time we got there, he's not liking the looks of these threshing gentlemen, and he tried to hang on to me. And he does have a shoulder wound, and I do bandage it up and get German blood on my arms. Our orders, of course, were not to do anything except capture and turn over to the authorities. And the story was that he looked pretty scared. Well, yeah, he did. Once he was with the authorities, he knew he wasn't going to be mistreated. And so the story that came back to Daddy was that once he knew he just wanted to be in prison somewhere in the territory where he could see the march through London. Because he didn't get lucky either. And because Mother said, I wish they'd let us at him. We'd had more out of him than that. But that wasn't allowed. We were fighting a polite war. They don't do that anymore, do they?
I don't think they do, not from what I've been hearing. I think the gentlemanliness disappeared quite a while back.
Well, eventually, it had to be after 42. All right, I have to pick it up from Carl's side to get the dates right. Carl and his brother Henry went in January of 42 and did their basics together and then got split. One to Texas for the 2nd Division and Carl to Florida with the 1st. And he said they went over with the Queen Mary, 2,000 men packed tight enough that you had to eat and sleep in shifts. 4.5 days with the Queen, zigzag and no convoy. Most of the ships were convoy at that time. But that crew, and I didn't meet him after this, he was with the landings in North Africa. And they went up along the coast of Africa into Tunisia. His version of the Kasserine Pass was not the one that Patton had on the movie. But he survived that. And then the British came the other way. They met up somewhere in Tunisia. And they went in. I won't quote you, I'll quote you numbers, but don't hold me. I think it was 2 American, 2 British divisions that went into Sicily, sort of like this. Anyway, Sicily was not alone. That was where we got Carl's version of friendly fire. He was recon all the way. We got ahead of where they thought we were, and we had to get the hell out of it. They came under friendly fire. Anyway, when they got Sicily done, they split. It's interesting when you read the stories of the guys that went the other way, because the half went to invade Italy. The other half come back around into England to get ready for Normandy. This is where I met him. There was a camp, maybe 7 miles from us. Big old camp, took 5,000 men altogether. Being occupied by various. Before the Yanks took it over, there was one story of the MPs patrolling a line down the middle because they had the Welsh were falling out with the Free French or something, and somebody was having to keep the Allies from fighting each other. But when the Yanks took it over, then they eventually ended up dividing that coast into sections. And we happened to fall into the American section, so that anything that went on was answerable to the local American commander. In theory, we even had asked the local American commander if we could use our own village hall, but it didn't get quite that sticky. It was just, I did see riding the bus one day into another town where somebody didn't have the right right identity cards. They got told to stay on the bus and go. We got another funny. Daddy and my brother, in the meantime, had gone into the underground. Out of the Home Guard grew an underground group, Secret Service group, who was supposed to disappear if there was an invasion and go out and destroy things and all kinds of interesting stuff. But he had for papers. And we were used to, if they stopped his car, if he showed those papers, yes sir, fine sir. In this occasion, we think that was either Churchill or Eisenhower was in the territory. Something was going on. Carl had come a visiting. Of course, he had his military papers. I was going to ride along, not intending to get off the car. Stupidity, didn't pick up my purse. So we get to where the military is, and they stop the car, and since one's holding the gun and one's holding the bayonet. Yes, sir, your papers are fine. What about your passengers? Well, Carl's all right. Carl gets out. He said, Cap, you're okay, buddy. I haven't got any papers. Either I get off and walk 5 miles home, or the car goes back. Well, I get off. Carl kisses me goodbye with that stupid sentry holding the bayonet. I swear he did it for the heck of it. I mean, he keeps a straight face, he holds that bayonet, but I swear it was devil. That might have been shortest kiss on record of that courtship. So then I had to walk home. Damn it. But we watched the Americans putting together they dig a ditch. They would make it X much deeper and run through these jeeps. They were waterproofing stuff like this. You didn't know what they were doing. You'd not be just so stupid Yanks again. And they didn't like our blackout. We were used to driving. You took the headlight or the flashlight or whatever. You covered it with brown paper with a slit this big and this long. And you drove like that. You were used to it. The neighbors were used to it. Yanks couldn't get used to it. They come down the road with the headlights blazing. Oh, those guys. Well, the roads go like this, you know. They're old roads. There's usually a bank or a stone wall or something at the side, as far as they were concerned. They had to be able to see.
Well, how did they adjust to the driving on the different side of the road? Because I suppose they brought vehicles along that were designed to drive the way we do.
I never asked them that. we cussed the lighting was what, because they'd blind you when you were used to the other. You saw them coming a ways off, you got out of the way. Our area, with one exception, we were lucky. Everybody got along with everybody. They put on dances. The guys would come. And if they could get off and go out and visit the farmhouses or the villages, the orders were be nice to the Allies, you know. Feed them what you got, take them in, make nice. 2 counties over, I suppose they got drunk. It was a small group, probably 3 or 4 Americans who apparently roughed up a girl. They said in that county the Americans could not go out alone. But it was the difference in, might have been just 3 or 4 guys, but for that, forget it.
Yeah.
Our county, though, we had pretty good luck. Carl would come to the house and he'd bring his buddies. And we had an awful time. One was a Southerner. In Europe, every American is a Yank.
Mm-hmm.
We had to have it explained to us very carefully why Fred was feeling so insulted. Oh, and then one day Fred had a bad day, and he was sitting at the supper table, cussing out officers in general and captains in particular. Well, about 8 this time of night, Daddy gets up. We've been just laughing, and nobody says anything, and Dad keeps quiet. Daddy gets up and he says to Mother, I suppose I better get going, dear. And he goes upstairs and puts on his uniform. Comes out with Captain Stars. Oh, Fred was mad, because everything's quiet until he's gone, and then Fred starts into Carl. Why the heck didn't you tell me? Carl hadn't said anything, and Mother had been egging him on. She was like that. Oh, dear. You remember the funny parts. With certain exceptions, like Daddy getting wounded, you forget the rough. You remember the funny parts.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But
did you have pretty strong rationing going on as far as food and all the various rubber and
yes,
gas and all that kind of thing?
we were not so bad off because we had the farm. You don't tell the chickens how many eggs to lay. There was always milk. The rationing, if you were at home, was quite tight. If you could get fish, because we were islanders, fish wasn't rationed, you could get fish. If there was a storm at sea, you couldn't get fish. I think Lily, my cousin, said you got 1 egg a week. I remember Dad's asking her, what did you feed the guys? Well, she made vegetable soup. And, well, can you imagine what they made out of that? The sugar ration, when it came out, each of us was insisted that we give Mother 2 ounces of our ration so she could cook. And then the rest of us, this is just us, I don't know if everybody did. We had our little jar. What we put on our cereal or in our tea or whatever, that was our business. And if it was gone till next time. So the sugar had to have been short. Candy was non-existent because the Yanks bought a lot of goodwill with the kids with their candy ration. That I remember. Candy was very, very short. But we got a sugar ration. They got a butter ration because we could make butter ourselves. The meat was rationed. I don't remember the bread being short. We got orders as farmers to put in X many acres of potatoes. Don't matter what you usually grew there. Never mind that, you're going to grow X, but I think we had 4 acres of them. Mm-hmm. Because, then there's plenty of that kind of stuff. What else was? Gas, of course, was severely rationed. People went on bicycles anyway.
Yeah.
See, before the war, you could buy a car, but an ordinary person could not afford to keep gas very long. Gas was always high. So that cars were uncommon for that reason. The boys all a motorbike. Not the great big Harleys, but that's the way they got around. A lot of us just rode bicycles. Mm-hmm. The distances aren't the same. See, we were 5 miles from the nearest stands. We could take our bike, put a skirt in the saddlebag or shoes or something, change what we got there. I used to ride my bike on an old Roman road. Some of those Roman roads are still in existence. Some of them you can kind of see the trail through you could tell it because the Roman road goes straight. Period. Mm-hmm. So in some places you could see where it has been. But some they've kept up. And I know that one stretch from Dorchester down to Weymouth. That's I don't know one bike on it, but they just kept it up, Roman road. That's a while.
Yeah. A couple thousand years.
Yeah. Yeah. We're getting sidetracked, aren't we?
Yeah. We're back to the Romans.
Well, Carl kept coming. And until I finally agreed to marry him. He asked me 3 times before we got around to it. And then the menfolk decided to try him out.
Mm-hmm.
He'd been coming, visiting, helping me milk for months. I think we met him about Thanksgiving time.
Mm-hmm. Thanksgiving in what year would that be? 43, 44?
43.
43.
Before the invasion was 44. So,
Yes.
So we must have met him in the fall. They'd come back from Sicily
Mm-hmm.
and started their little fun things. And it took them a while to get everything ready, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
That's a story of itself. But my brother was still home, so I think he just turned 18, was waiting for his turn. He signed up, and they had a system with the Air Force if you wanted to be a pilot. The training was apparently 9 or 10 months. And when they would send them overseas, some went to Texas, some to Canada.
Mm-hmm.
When they shipped out, then they signed up the next bunch and sent them back home to wait the 9 months until their turn came. But they were at home 9 months after they were originally sworn in. So Jeff must have been about 18. They went out fencing. Well, the fences at home, bramble bushes with wire through, barbed wire hedges. So they took it fencing. When they came back, I think all 3 were pretty well scratched up, but they were all laughing. Oh, then they had him clean out the cow barn. Well, that wasn't news to him. He couldn't do that. He just learned to cover his fatigues instead of his dress uniform. He survived their hazing. But in those days, you had to give 60 days notice to marry a foreigner. And of course, to us, the Yanks are foreigners.
Yeah, I suppose.
No, I'll stick with this for the moment. Well, before 60 days, he wasn't anywhere for 60 days.
Mm-hmm.
Got moved once and came marching over the hills on one day when he got a pass. He must have walked 10, 12 miles. He said, we had 10 days to go. He said, I think we're going to make it. I told me where he was. They got moved the next week, and then they're all beyond barbed wire, so they can't get out and tell anybody where they are. And the next thing I know where he is, we're invading France. That wedding got put off. And I wasn't the only one. And of course you didn't know. It was about a week between when the wedding was and the actual landing. So you just knew he didn't show up.
Yeah.
And you didn't know why. Well, you could tell why, but you didn't know whether he's going to march in the way he did before or whether he's gone somewhere else. You just get up in the morning and wait, and the groom doesn't come. Well, that's fun, too. But...
So how long was it before you heard from him then?
I don't remember. Must have been weeks. Once they got moving, see, they landed, he did land on D-Day.
Yeah.
He wasn't in the first round. The division were first, but they were recon, so they weren't on the first. He must have been in Belgium when he wrote. I got a letter that he had 2 little blonde girlfriends. Well, little blonde, feed them candy bars. And he got as far as Aachen, which is over so he got through France and through, because we packed the book. I got the book put up for Dorothy, for my kids, but it's packed. He didn't talk much about it, but by following the divisions and the names of the colonels and generals, we can follow it, where his division went. They went west of Paris. They weren't the exclusive ones that went into Paris, but they went up through Belgium and crossed the river by Aachen. His remark was that Aachen was pretty well rubble when they went in. And somewhere north of Aachen, he came down with malaria that turned to rheumatic fever. So then he shipped back first to a field hospital by somewhere outside Paris. And then I don't know if it's helicopter or a small plane. Helicopters weren't as common then, but anyway, by air back to a hospital on the Salisbury Plain in England. So then I get a letter from him. He does not have an address per se. Can't tell me where he is, but you know he's in England. So I go to the nearest Red Cross, and they say, well, we can't really tell you where that is, but go to such and such a town and ask again. Well, after doing this 4 times, I eventually get to the right place. Oh, it's a day's journey. So then I visited him, and he was able to be up. Didn't know how bad off he was, because he thought he was going to get back to, maybe not back to the front, but back to regular duty. So he said, well, I can get up, and he's ambulatory, he can walk around. Go back and put the beds up again. Fine. About 2 weeks later, I get a telegram. Come at once. I missed him by 2 hours. I got back to the camp. That unit just left this morning, 2 hours ago. I didn't see him again for another year. But he said he didn't. He said afterwards, there were 2 stories to it. He didn't believe he was going for home until they got to the dock and he saw the amputees. And the other story that came to me from somewhere else is quite believable. They wanted to put him in the psycho ward because he was hollering about not wanting to go home yet. So they went that way. I chased that guy across the world until I caught up with him. He said they went home with a Liberty ship. Because he could walk around, he would go down to where the guys were in the bunks strapped in and play cards. He said, I started out from Liverpool, I think, anyway, from the dock, with a couple of quarters. And halfway across the Atlantic, I had $200. By the time I got to New York, I'm back to 2 quarters. Then we get a bad one. They put him in the hospital in New York. And nothing against New York, but there, his treasures are stolen. The locket with my picture in, some treasure, I think it was a pen or a lighter with his initials on it, his mother had given him. The cigarettes, they were stolen. He said the only reason he said the wedding ring, he was sleeping on it. Everything else was stolen in New York, not in Europe. So that was not a good homecoming.
No.
He ended up in a convalescent camp in Colorado for 8 months. And he got out in July of 45. It was about over there, the other side of us.
But getting close.
Huh?
But getting close in the Pacific.
Yeah, his unit were into Germany before he left. They weren't very far in, but they were already into Germany when he came down with his rheumatic fever. He'd had malaria probably in Tunisia or somewhere. He had talked about some place where they marched 23 hours and just dropped and slept an hour and get up and march again. And that probably is where they forgot to take the pills. Can figure that. Because they did have malaria pills in that time. He got malaria and it went to rheumatic fever and then it went to jaundice. And one way or another he was, I think they said 4 weeks and he wasn't cohesion at all. After that, he wrote. Because then when he gets back here, he starts the paperwork to bring me over. Because he's in a convalescent camp, old John has to sign the papers that I won't be in charge of the county. Follow up for that a year later, Carl goes over to, I think his brother was going to drive. They were going to meet me at Yankton. The train came through Parkston, but they thought that would be too much of an audience. When he gets there, here old John is all dressed up in the suit that he always wears for Sunday. I'm going along. I want to see what I get for my money. John was a character. He really was. He was a man and a half, that was. So that brings us to America.
Yeah.
Doesn't get us into Farmers Union.
No. Was talked about the difference for him when he was in England. What did you feel like when you got out here to South Dakota? Was it what you expected? Or?
No. The distances you have to imagine. I think my cousin put it right. He was how long ago was Philip and Wendy here?
Oh, this 10 years.
Anyway, he was in Colorado on a teacher exchange. And he went down to Texas to a wedding to Kathy. And he said, it's driving from Manchester to Moscow. That was his, that's about the best comparison.
Same mileage.
Yeah. The distances are tremendous. The houses, I said I never could keep my mouth shut. I made it where somebody could hear me. They looked like doll houses. Yeah, doll houses, what are you doing? The difference was I was used to not size, but stone, brick or stone or something of that order. And all these little wooden houses looked to me like doll houses. Somebody asked me how we had rained like today, but it must have been July because they were cutting grain. And the neighbors come down to me just because I'd been paddling around shucking the darn rain in 6 inches of water. I wasn't in a good mood. Couldn't see why company would come under those circumstances. And this dear lady said to me, have you shucked grain before? Yes, but not 6 inches of water. Never could keep my mouth shut. But when somebody would ask me what the difference was, oh heck, cows got 4 legs anywhere you go. Cows are cows. Mm-hmm. Distances are different. Wheat is better at home. The ears are this big. Mm-hmm. Grows taller. Mm-hmm. Different climate. I'd never seen corn grow. I'll show you when I get up. Picture of me looking at my first corn crop. I'm out there looking for the ear on the top like wheat. I didn't know it came out like this. I'd never seen corn. It doesn't grow in that climate. And to us, corn, what did grow was chicken feed. Maize. Mm-hmm. Don't eat that stuff. Kathy.
Yeah?
Would you bring me that Farmers Union cookbook that's on by the desk there? Left hand, over there, see the corner?
Yep.
It's got some pictures in it. I'm sure Sharks cheat them, but they don't have names on, you see. There's a lot of my pictures in there. I'm not going to give you the book, but you can probably, can you access a book like this? See, that is Carl.
Oh, okay. Well, I think we've got a copy. I've got a copy of this at home.
All right, let me see here. That's Carl.
All right.
I'm not sure who the other two, but that I remember.
Mm-hmm.
That's Carl's brother.
Okay.
That's the house I came to as a bride.
Mm-hmm.
It's north of the golf course. I think it's still standing.
Mm-hmm.
There is me by the cornfield.
Okay. I'll be darned. I'd seen those pictures before, but I didn't know it was you.
This is that gal that's over there. That's Kathy.
Okay.
And this is Mary Lindemann.
Mm-hmm.
This is you, dear. Look
I
at
know.
you pout.
I can still do it.
Yeah. All right, this we moved.
Mm-hmm.
And he's claiming grounds. That's Kathy and Mary.
Okay.
This is my favorite. I got a better view of that. That's my favorite of those two.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's Dorothy. She's in Texas.
Mm-hmm.
But see, they're not, we didn't identify them because when we ended up with them, they felt too many of them would have the Hafner name on.
Mm-hmm.
And other people might feel she just wanted old pictures.
Yeah, you worked with Mary on that, did you?
I don't think it was Mary. Who did
Okay.
it? Was Elaine around then? I got a feeling it was Elaine, but I wouldn't be sure.
Yes, Elaine was.
So, but now, if you got access to that,
Yes, I have a copy of that at home, and I'm sure we have one at the office yet too. But
so you can figure out who is which.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Let me see where that. Let me think. I bet it isn't here. I bet it's packed. See, some of this stuff is packed already. Don't want to tip my coffee.
Yeah.
I better the book I want is. All of this is for you.
Oh, okay.
See, and this, of course, see, here's an oldie. But this one, you're talking of oral histories. So this is Hutchinson County, and I think all but one of them are ours. Now that's all of it. All right, that's one of my kids. Yes, that's St. John's. That's Tripp.
Okay.
So that's John's. We actually stole the story out of an essay I'd written at college because we were pressed for time. That was fun. And my kids, some of the counties had, mine are all kid drawn. Every one with one exception somewhere. These are mine. Like home. Some of these kids are still around, some of them not.
Yeah.
This guy, the reason this guy had to do two was because he came to us from another local, had to make up. Yeah, this story on Johnny, so we had it here the other day, the one that was killed.
Yeah.
That's his sister. Mitten little kid. Was it Ellie that was killed? No, it was his brother, I think, was killed. This guy. The girl. Newberg. Samuel. Now see, he now has the doubtful privilege of going to the same church I do. We laugh about it. You know, sometimes we'll laugh about it. If the kids are misbehaving, he'll laugh. But watch it. I said, I can pull his ears, I can pull yours too. This one's for Ethan, but she came to our local. And that's her own drawing. He's a summer kid. Keep Turi, she's back in Horse, and there's another summer. Turi. Rolly Winter's son. Mark Zerple. David Zerple. He's a minister now. And you know, he credits the Farmers Union speech program to getting him on that road. He's told me so. So that of Hutchinson County, those are truthfully history projects.
Okay.
They were fun. Okay. Maybe we better go back to your questions or you're never going to get done.
Okay. We worked through, you covered quite a few of them, and that's the way it should happen, that you just get going and I don't have to ask the questions, you answered them.
I can tell a story if I get a new listener. See, a fresh listener, you go.
Okay, so you arrived here and get settled. What year was that then?
46, June of 46.
June of 1946. Okay.
59 years ago.
And is Kathy the oldest then?
Yeah.
Okay, so
she was born in 47.
Yeah. Okay. What's your birthday?
May 18th.
Okay, I'm just a little bit older than you are actually.
I told her you couldn't be much older.
No, not much. About February 27th.
See?
Oh, that's damn close.
Yep. Okay. So you're getting involved in the community here. What was the first thing you got involved with outside of the farm? Were there
Church.
community groups and church?
What a big church. See, we had babies one after the other. The wedding been delayed for a couple of years already, and we wanted a family. We'd agreed on a family. So Carl was a strong Knights of Columbus member, so we would go, group of relatives and neighbors would go together, and when the guys had a KC meeting, and the women would meet together, and when the ladies had Catholic Daughters meeting, and the men would meet together. I had one story of Carl pushing her in the buggy with his foot while he has the neighbor's boy on his shoulder because Monica couldn't keep him quiet, be an older brother to this one church. So the first few years, it was pretty much church. Here again, I can tell you a funny story about almost everything. It's a snowy, and I think 1950. Snowy winter about March or April when the neighborhood Farmers Union do a membership drive, and I know there's a bunch of guys sitting out in the car signing up, yakking about something. No, they're trying to sell something. And he comes in the kitchen, say hi, and I joined the Farmers Union. Yeah, that's nice too. Several years later, so then we get the Farmers Union paper.
Mm-hmm.
Now, no disrespect to it, when I'm cleaning chickens, I put newspapers on the table.
Yeah.
And here, in that corner, is something about a kid program.
Mm-hmm.
Well, by this time, my kids, Dorothy's pushing 5, and the other 2 are steps older. That one had to be 8.
Mm-hmm.
So I pull that piece out till car comes home. I said, this looks like a good stunt for our kids.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. We go to the next meeting, and we ask, winter was the county chairman. Camp's coming up. 2 things happen, more or less, not exactly simultaneously, but the same area of time. They will, at that time, start a 5-year-old if they're going to be 6. And Dorothy was the bashful kid. And we wanted to get her into something before school because at that time we'd have, 30, 40 kids in a class. We've got to get this kid broke. You couldn't put it down to the neighbors, it was so bashful.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to get them in the class. Well, you know how it is. They take the 2 bright ones, those 2 smart Alecks at the top, but couldn't I keep the other one for another year? Well, this wasn't what I wanted. So again, I opened my big mouth and could you possibly take her if I helped teach a class? You know the answer to that, except that I wouldn't teach her class. That's where I got it. That was 55. That's where I got started teaching class.
Okay.
I said, well, I could drive. Then I could. And I could take a load of kids. So we go out to Milltown for camp.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm driving and going home. I get out there, and Marvin says, no, there's 6 kids, and here's a book to get with it. Mm-hmm. You can do that. Yeah, I did that. So I started teaching classes. Agnes Rath was she was the best with kids. She had Dorothy coaxed along. I owed her for years. Mm-hmm. I said I owed Farmers Union for Dorothy, and the kids always said, you're going to pay back in. But Agnes was not good at the bookkeeping. When it came to reports, well, maybe they're on the refrigerator, maybe they never had the clock, and I had kept, at that time I hadn't got my accounting legal, but I kept Daddy's books during the morning. Mm-hmm. The home guard books.
Yeah.
So, well, can't I do that for you? Well, yeah. And I've been doing them ever since. Mm-hmm. I have found since that my compadres will do almost anything for me if I'll keep the darn books. They'll clean my kitchen, cook the dinners, take care of anything. Just keep those records for us. Mm-hmm. That's where I got my reputation, is keeping those books. And I've been doing it since 55.
Mm-hmm. That's 50 years now.
I was going to make 50 years, and so I'll only make 49, because this year won't come.
Mm-hmm. See? Well, they may make an exception and send you one of those pins anyhow, or whatever the 50 years thing is.
I don't know. See,
I'll lobby for you.
Last year was 49, and the exit was December, so I've been pretty useless for a lot of 05. Mm-hmm. But that's where I started teaching kids. I never had much luck with those, Kathy.
Show you this picture?
Yeah, I couldn't get them to work. Not decent. Not a light was good enough. Yeah, don't monkey with them. We got enough to monkey with. Oh, what's your next question?
Well,
that's how we got started.
Yeah. What was the education program like back in the 1950s? Was it pretty? Has it changed a lot?
It's changed time.
There's more kids in the rural area, certainly.
The original instructions were 4 meetings. And something else, I forgot. And at that time, the locals would meet through the winter at least, and you could get in 4 meetings. Now, in the first place, you go to county meetings. In the second place, the kids are so organized you can't get them there, so that you have to do your project separately. I got to where I got arguing time-wise. I said, so you're telling me a meeting. You get maybe an hour of book work, and then you have lunch. You might do a little craft. 2 hours maybe. If I've got in 2.5 hours in the morning, 2.5 at the end of the evening, you're going to give me 2 meetings. They didn't like it, but I was doing the records. I screwed it. And I didn't cheat anybody. I got their full, but according to the books, I wasn't.
Yeah.
So that if I could get the kids on a Saturday or Sunday, which at that time, Saturday and Sunday, we'd get into the morning. We'd get in the morning and the afternoon, and then the next day we do afternoon and evening program. I say, you've got your 4 meetings in. Well then, not sure just when it was, but several years ago, I went into the high school office to see when there would be a free weekend, because we kept running into weekends when the kids were busy. And the principal, who knew me pretty well, said, well, yeah, you could look at the calendar, but try June. Forget it. You see, you can't go till June. So then we've gone to 1 day's camp, which they now have on a Thursday in August, which was the choice of my 2 compadres. And we managed to keep it going.
Yeah. Now you're probably the only local that had that had a camp, or were there more earlier on?
They usually went into the county,
Yeah.
but see now the county, particularly in Hutchinson County, county camp has gone down. There was a time when they asked, couldn't we do the county camp of St. John's together? When we looked at it, I said, well, an awful lot of my Parkland kids are not going to Mano.
Sure.
And Mano kids didn't want to go to Parkland. All right, forget it. Just don't give me any static. I'm going to keep mine going. A lot of mine still went to county. I had quite a few of mine that counseled the county. But we kept St. John's going, and we get more kids. I was going to have a fight with the county vice president over it, but now she'll get her own way because I won't be here. I set it from 304 to 17. I want my seniors there, unless they're working. And all the little ones, that's fine. Well, she says, you're babysitting. I said, I don't care. They want to come. They'll come next year. They bring their brothers and sisters. Well, she is determined that that's just babysitting. She's not going to take those 4-year-olds anymore. Well, they had told me that, and I was show-chucked that. One of my loving daughters gave me that. I wore it for the bazaar. The bazaar was about Halloween time. It was in October, so I wore it with my pin that Earl gave me. He gave me a witch's broom pin, that boy. Earl is my son-in-law. Yeah. Anyway, so, but that's where we have our numbers. We have perhaps a third of our numbers are too young, but they love it. They want to come back.
Sure.
And then they'll grow into it. I gave Phyllis the book Monday already, but I take that sheet where it says first grade through, and here on the block, and I've marked preschool and kindergarten, and some of them have got 13 years with me. I never had any trouble, because I ended up somewhere in the line getting a teaching degree. I do have a teaching degree. But I never had any trouble assigning them to classes, matching the teachers to the classes. It's a class they don't want to teach it myself. It's usually the 7th and 8th grade they don't want. And I still, up until last year, I still argue with the state. Don't give me one of those things that says 6 through 13. I want 4 through 17. And I got the numbers to prove it. We run 20-some kids. Still.
Yep.
There was a time when it was double that. But as far as I know, it's still going because Phyllis asked me what they're going to do for the seniors. I usually wrote the program myself because one of the things you run into with an active kid, they go to county. If they go to county, they go to district. It's probably the same book, and then they come to mine and state come with the same books. Well, that's fine for those 3 and 4-year-olds, but forget the rest. So I will usually come up with something they're supposed to do. We use the books for coloring or cutting or whatever. But, I've done environment. The last one we did, of course, was Lewis and Clark. And I've done election.
Yeah.
I come up with something.
Yeah. They always try to incorporate cooperatives into it.
That one is always in the book the state sent out, you see. I don't have to rewrite that.
Yeah.
I may put an angle to it,
Yeah.
but I don't try to rewrite that one.
Did you get some support from the local cooperatives for the program at all over the years?
Some.
Yeah, you didn't have a Farmers Union Oil Company here in town.
We got for a while a lot of support from Corsica. And then that went, I don't know what they went to, but they went away from it. Parkston, what they did here, and I think it was when the NFO was big, they managed to pack the local co-op board. See, the local co-op was actually started by St. John's members.
Oh, okay, sure.
That we could prove by the names. And they were supportive while they were, but the minute it went to NFO, forget it. We still get cups and plates and stuff. But they don't get, they've been getting some support locally. The grocery store will usually give them watermelons. One of the professional officers will give them $20 or so. The bank always pays the rent on the building. We get the good club. Yeah, we've had support.
Yeah. You have some, sort of a philosophy you developed about the education program and comparing the Farmers Union education program maybe to some other ones that were like 4-H or...
Yes. A very strong one. Goes back to my Dorothy. Now see, Kathy and Mary could make an A, keep a job, boyfriend on the side in Mary's case, and float right, no problem. Maybe with their father, because one thing or another. Dorothy worked 4 times as hard for a C+ as those two did for an A. So when we get to 4-H, who gets the ribbons? When you got to the Farmers Union, any kid that completed their work to the leader's satisfaction, Dorothy got the same trips they did. And I said, that's the only outfit I know of in this state. They don't care if I set up 6 kids to peer them in the apples or 10 kids. They'll take them all. They don't want my top ones. They'll take my top ones. But they will take all of the kids. Every kid's got a chance. And this has been most important to me, and I've pushed it and hollered it and preached it to everybody that listens.
And the torchbearer ceremony is kind of a nice thing at state.
Yeah, it's the same thing. Anybody that's complete can go. It isn't just my straight A students. I like straight A students. I like college, and that one's got a PhD. It's a smart aleck. But Dorothy could get the same trips by doing her best. And this is true of a lot of families. Yes, there is an important difference. I think I understand, although I was 19 years before age, one way or another. I understand that they've loosened up and they take a group of purples now, or something like that. But I haven't worked with it enough to know the details. But I know how it was when my kids were. And I know it went for a lot of families. If I got them in Farmers Union, they could all get the same trips if they got their work done. Okay, I can make you get your work done, or else. The only time I raised holy hell was just a couple of years ago, when that one little torchbearer, he didn't have his work done, and I called. Was one of my horseman kid. I called his teacher. What happened? His dad's been in Iraq all summer. He's working on the farm. I said, wait a minute. We're not going to lose this one. Well, you heard the results of that. I did a little preaching there, but it went through. Once
Yeah.
somebody got the idea, I said, mine surely isn't the only one. They'd taken one of the uncles and one of the brothers out of that family group. Well, kids were swamped. No way I was going to flunk that one. No way. But another thing, I always have the library. You know what a good PR, a library project is? In the windows, the parents see them. They come and see the display down the hallway. Any kid that has only one campy, you go walk on that library project. You prove to me that part of it is yours. You got another credit. And sometimes there's a reason. I know one of the girls, well, the day we had our camp, which she was supposed to make up, they moved her sister to Nebraska to college. Well, off with the whole family. You weren't going to punish that, or were you? No. You get your library project done. And I just explained it to Phyllis, and I hope she remembers it. And that is your savior. Because if they won't do anything, forget it. But if they're missing one credit for some reason, you make me something for that project. And most of the time, I could have it in the library from 2 to 4 weeks, depending on what else was tied up there. Take it to the district meeting, and then take it to state. And you've seen them.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they do pretty, and that's kid work. There's no writing on there of mine. Some of the lower ones, of course, the teachers have helped them write it. But on mine, that's kid work. I may have stood behind them and yelled at them.
Yeah.
But that's kid work. Okay. Well, did that cover that question?
I think so. I think so. All your kids went through the youth program.
I'm not sure that Pete finished.
Oh, okay.
I'm not sure now that I go back and check. I don't know.
Yeah,
Because,
that distracted.
well, he quit high school and
Oh, yeah. Okay.
went working and got a
Yeah.
GED and one thing and another. So he may not have finished. They went through the first half of it for sure,
Yeah.
but not all of them made transparent. The others did. The girls all did. John did eventually.
Yeah. And you won a family award?
Yeah. Did you pack those plaques already?
What?
Did you pack the plaques already? Or did you just take
I
them?
have them stacked over on the.
Give us a triangular one, if you will. Well, you just bring the stack.
Well, they aren't stacked real deep because I want to scratch them.
Set him next to his coffee cup.
You want to refill on that?
Maybe a little bit more, yeah.
Yeah, the top one is the one you're talking about.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah, that's
Yeah. All right.
that's the one.
Would you mind if I shot a picture of you?
I got my hair done this morning.
Okay.
I don't know about this shirt, Kath. If you take it from the shoulder up, yes.
Yes.
Because I took off my wet shirt and put on a house coat.
Mom, do you need coffee?
No, I have enough, thank you. What do you want me with it? I think.
Well, I thought maybe if you held your plaque there, that would be.
Well, I've only got 6 of them.
Well, why don't we just do one?
This was the first one.
Because we do have some pictures at the office, like of your recent ones that you got.
Well, this is the first one. This is the one the whole family took part in. This is the one that my daughter Judy also got.
Yeah.
Her and her husband.
Okay.
Say cheese, say money, say boys.
All right.
Smile pretty.
Think about this nice digital camera as I can check
See if it
out
comes
here.
out or not.
Yeah. I can even show it to you.
Probably will have to show it to Kathy.
There you are.
Yeah, that's not too bad. We'll pass that,
Yeah.
I think. Yeah, Arlene came out to check this out when we put in for this. I think it's one of our first big trips because she's telling me, well, you know more about it than I do. Well, I don't know about that. The kids were little. It was before John was born, but the first 5 kids all did something or other.
And that, what year was that then?
59.
1959. Okay.
Because we left the farm in about 62, I think. Carl had got progressively worse. He got to where he was wearing a back brace, 24/7, but from the time he got up to the time he went to
I'll just
bed.
maybe shoot another picture here.
Oh, you will. No black this time.
There we go. Okay.
It got to where the doc told him, "You got to get off that tractor, Carl." Well, the kids were not old enough,
Yeah.
and and it was a rented farm, so we quit.
Yeah.
But somehow St. John's didn't want me to quit, so I kept going.
Well, there were always people from town involved in the program too. So, what did Carl do then when you moved
Well,
to
for
town?
a couple of years,
Was he able to work?
he'd try to work, then he'd work a couple of days, and he'd get sick, and then, for a couple of years it was kind of rough.
Yeah.
Then he got working with Speed 66 Station. He and Speed had gone to school together,
Okay.
and they got along just fine. And Speed had some trouble with his back too, so anytime they got to lift something, they put it on the hoist.
Yeah.
There was no heavy lifting. So he worked there until he retired, about a year before that.
Okay. Okay. And when you moved into town, you were in probably you had me to your place for supper. I think maybe in the fall of the first year I worked for Farmers Union, maybe 1974. Was it a brick house?
Big old house.
Yeah, yeah.
We bought that house in '65. We moved it. We moved to town. We moved into a rented place, but then he got so he could work, and I was already working. And by '74, I was teaching. That's another story. Somewhere along the line, in those days, if you wanted to work as a nurse's aide, you didn't need anything more than know what you're doing. You could get that job. So I started there. And one day I walked into school, check on somebody or something, and Harold reading the paper. Harold Gary was super. And he said, "This will be for you." I said, "Huh?" GED. He says, "It takes 2 days. It costs you $5." I said, "I can't afford to take off work, and I haven't got $5." And he said something that stuck with me ever since. He says, "Joan, if you won't bet on yourself, who will?" So somewhere I borrowed the $5, so I took off for work, and I went down to Southern at the time. And there was nobody else there, so I'm sitting in the corner room. When I get one, they give me another one. By the end of the day, when it's about 4:45, I said, "What time tomorrow?" She says, "You don't need to come back tomorrow. You get all done." I got a 90-something on percentile on that thing. So then Harry and Merlin Graham coaxed me into DWU. And I took the second semester and summer, 2 semesters, which amounted to 1 credit short of a year of work, so I could teach country school. And then I went summers and nights at first till I got a 2-year, and eventually I got a 4-year. And about the time that's going good, they close up all the country schools. I know one place I applied to, they had 2 openings, one of them half-time, and 54 applicants. So then I went back to Motec and took a year of accounting there. And I got a job. And I taught accounting until I worked bookkeeper until the place I was working closed up. And I was 63, so looking for a job wasn't easy, but it happened that the Girl Scout Council out of Huron were, although I didn't find this at the time, looking for an older party to kind of steady a certain aspect of it down, but not be someone that stuck with too many years. So I worked for them for 7, 8 years. Now that job was 90% fun and 10% work. But there again, the background, I always got brownish because I knew how to do the reports. I wasn't doing any more work than anybody else, but I was going better reports. So they thought I was better. I tried to tell the other girls, you listen to what nationalists put the screw on the president to come up with, and you slant your work. You can't, on a sheet of paper this big, write a month's work anyway.
Yeah.
Emphasize the part she wants to hear. Well, somehow that didn't go down, but it sure worked for me. It makes sense.
Talking about the education program, who were you remember some of the education leaders you worked with, and from the state level maybe, or the district level?
District level, Lennox Larson, I think.
Yep.
Leif Lugner. No, he was district president, wasn't he? But he'd always come to our camp. Trying to think of her name. From Reuben Lanza.
Oh, yeah.
See, she would always come with a pocket full of quarters or nickels or something that he had sent. He backed us when we sent her to the camp. And there was always treats when she was home. And Kenny Bergen was...
Yep.
There was a funny on that because I got engaged to Art the same year he got... Because we had district directors meeting and they're giggling over my diamond, and then he walks in to make his diamond and you haven't got any diamond, you aren't any fun. Oh, well that is here. Here we go. That set up a lot of years in Hutchinson County because a lot of people didn't know Art was getting married. And at that time, of course, that went out to every member. The news got around before he was ready to tell them. But I had the diamond, he could prove it.
I seem to remember some of us staff were down to Sioux Falls, and you spoke at a sort of a Farmers Union women's thing along about that time or a little before or something like that. It's like at the downtown Holiday Inn. It
might have been the year after Carl died.
Because I think you talked about being widowed.
Yeah, I think that was Kenny Bergen set that up. He wanted to. Was I ready to talk about that? So that would have been 79, because he died in 78.
Yeah.
Yes, that was under Kenny Bergen. See, I worked with Elaine. Yes, I worked with Putzier.
Wilma.
Yes.
Yeah.
She was too much of a politician. And I wasn't enough of one. I can blow my Irish, and if something I want to defend, I will. But I say I won't make a politician. I can't remember the right name and the right face, and I can't keep my mouth shut. I'll never make a politician. But we worked with her usually. Didn't fall out too much. Usually if they let me alone, I don't give them any trouble. On one occasion, I'm doing district camp, and the bus driver's asking the state staff where they want it. Oh, this is my camp. Well, it wasn't the kids' fault. I told him very plain, this is my camp. State staff is here to do what I ask them. The state staff had so much was expected of it. In fact, they would get into a place where they'd put the ad in the paper, rented a hall, expected the state to come in and do everything else. They come into me, and I've got it all lined up. No, this is what I want you to do, and this is what I'm going to, and the difference, and everything in between, I think. They need to be very adaptable, those kids. Kids, they're young people.
There are 4 of them out this year.
They need to be very adaptable because they run into more differences and more stubborn old ladies. is true.
Mm-hmm.
It's like now, you say it's all in your head. It is. That's what it is. Am I losing track of your question?
No, we're working our way through there. There are a lot of challenges facing organizations and cooperatives
Yes.
have changed over the years. What seems like the biggest change to you as you look back to the way things were here when you arrived and into the 50s to the way they are today?
The biggest problem is the kids are so over-organized. They could even 8 nights a week and not be home.
Yeah.
And you're looking for, it's like the time when I went to find a day for camp and they told me after school is out, maybe, if you're lucky. I think kids are over-organized. They don't have time to be kids sometimes.
Yeah.
But there's just, I suppose we need to teach them to make choices. We did it for economic reasons. So you're out on the farm and you've got 5 kids, this is before Joan was born, and you got so much time and so many nickels, they got to 2. And pretty much they didn't get a lot of choice because we chose where we could take all of them. Now my daughter-in-law, John's widow, is trying to take each one different. This one wants to play football, this one's out for track. You could go nuts. There are so many choices. Some of them, either the kids thinking or the parents' pressure to try out for everything. In my opinion, they ought to teach you to make choices.
Yeah.
You can carry so much stuff before you start getting headaches or ulcers. And that's what I think is that they're overly organized. It sounds good. They got so many choices. But there's only 24 hours in the day.
Yeah.
Or only 7 days in a week.
Yeah. It seems to me that another change might be it's harder to find farm women who have time to volunteer to help out in programs like this when they're all working, as well
Yes,
as helping out on the farm.
Well, not only the farm. I think almost all the young couples I know, they both work.
Yeah.
Yes, that is different too. It seems like it takes 2 people to keep a family going nowadays. So yes, help is harder that way.
Do you think that what you and others did over the years can be done today?
Not the same way.
Yeah.
You still got to get to your kids as individuals. I had one wants to be a repairman. That's what I was teaching country school. You had to convince him that he needed to do fractions and radios and covers or something. And another one took the speech program and swore it helped him with his advance in the ministry. The kids have to choose a line for themselves. And they're still going to be individuals. I don't care how many there are of them.
Yeah.
They all have to learn computer or you can't get a job.
Yeah.
But there's always a way to help them. You get into, now if they needed me to help with a computer, what I would do is find somebody else to help them. I couldn't do it. I thought computer. But I bet I could find someone that I could say, well, look, I need a little help here. If you talk to them pretty or bribe them or something. I have one girl that bribes everybody with cookies. Not this one, it's the youngest one. She can get more done with cookies. I heard she took the helicopter crew that took me in the hospital. She took them all cookies. But however, well, when Kathy was teaching home ec, I heard her say that you always took some of the cookies or cakes or whatever to the janitor's. Her floors were always clean. You could ask her, Kathy, I'm talking about you. Come and back me up. Oh, we'll get to it when you come through again. Okay. Oh, we'll ask her that when she comes through. But this is, I wanted to bribe you, I don't know if it'd be cookies, but I'd find a way to make it worthwhile. Wouldn't be that hard. There's always something that somebody would like a boost with.
Sure.
A pet project. Sometimes it's a volunteer. In some cases, it's a charity that hits the heart. Some places it's financial.
Yep.
But there's always a spot. All you got to do is find it. But it is hard. I know everybody's working.
Yeah. Knowing you, I know you give advice to people. What kind of advice would you give somebody who is involved in the education program today as you're leaving for Texas?
You have to treat the kids as individuals. You still expect a reasonable amount of discipline and manners. I mean, there was no one guy looked at me in the eye and wanted to argue with me. Well, he didn't get lucky. When I say you go with your counselor, you go with, see, I expect that kind of discipline. But at the same time, you've got to see what each kid is interested in. And you've got to be able to offer some choices. And Lord, you've got to fit it into that 8-day a week they've got already. No easy problem. But if they're interested, and you can offer them something that will tie into their interest.
Do you have any idea how many kids went through the program here and achieved over the years?
All right, I've got 49 years here. I bet we've run 50 kids through, more than 50 towards Bears. We must have.
A lot of scholarship winners too, I think,
Yes,
because they're on the plaques at the office.
Yeah, and we've had some of the extra project winners. We've had camp counselors. In that one year we were supposed to have two state camp counselors out of one little local. MC Bob was killed. I had this one, this will be 10, 15 years ago. Must have been when I was district education director and some of my boys were going up for. And I'm telling them, listen, if you mind me, you can go on up to state. He says, hey, you're twice as tough as state. I told one of them at a meeting, they were talking about what they would do on the state. Well, we like doing this. I said, remember, he's thinking, we did that last year. These are kids that are coming and haven't done it. You're not sending it for you. And afterwards, we didn't make a big issue. Afterwards, he came by and thanked me and said, yeah, I was out alone. They were setting up what they would do because they did that last year. It's just a new bunch of kids. Well, I just told him, because it was one of mine and I could tell him. Maybe one of the others I wouldn't have. Happened to be one of mine on that. And I told him. Okay. When he thought it over, he come back and told me I was right. You treat kids the way you'd want to be treated. You don't treat them up there. You gotta, I said, that's why I like my seventh like this. You can talk plain English to them. They understand plain English. Either if you do this, you will learn that, or if you do this, I'm going to beat you. Whatever.
Could you tell right away when you got a little kid, could you tell that this is a kid that's going to go all the way through the program as opposed to one that may drift off when they're maybe 10 years old?
No, it's too many years, because you could get one that's real bright and gung-ho for the first 5 years. I lose the most teenagers about 16. They get jobs or boyfriends or girlfriends. Between those two, you have a hard time. And you can't tell who do what. You'll get one that you know is going to finish or else. But I was telling about the time you were teaching home ec and you always gave the janitor staff goodies so your floors would get cleaned. Was that correct?
I don't remember that part, but it could have been true. I have always been kind and respectful to the people who help me out.
That includes the janitor staff, doesn't it?
They're doing legitimate work, honorable work, and they deserve respect for it.
And that's from the professor.
Yeah.
Okay, I second that one.
Okay, I've got one question left here.
Oh, we're doing good.
Yeah. When you were a young girl in England, would you have been surprised if you learned what direction your life was going to take and you were going to end up out here in South Dakota?
Yes, I think I would.
No.
To going to another country might not have surprised me because of the background.
Mm-hmm. You had been to Australia, which I
Yes.
didn't know before interviewing you here.
So, yeah, I've actually been to school on 3 continents.
Mm-hmm.
But no, I didn't expect to come this direction. I really didn't.
Mm-hmm. Did you get back to England?
I've been back twice. The first time was 28 years. Between milking cows and raising kids,
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't possible. My dad died 2 years after I came here. I wasn't able to go then. I wanted to go when my brother was killed. I couldn't go then.
He was in the
Air Force.
Royal Air Force.
Yeah. Actually, he was in Germany on occupation duty. You know that 1950s Cold War?
Mm-hmm.
It was allegedly a routine training mission, but they never. The one thing that's different, and I don't know if it's changed, but used to be very different there to what it is here. They didn't feel it was necessary to inform the public of every detail of something that happened. If he's killed or wounded in a legitimate service, you didn't ask if it was somebody's fault or if it was training or if it was shot. Well, if they were shot down, you usually knew it, but you did not get the details, and you didn't expect them because you simply didn't.
Yeah.
The American public have a much greater desire to know.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it even says it's a right to know. I say it's a desire to know.
Yeah.
And there are times when I wonder if that doesn't put things and people at risk.
Mm-hmm.
It's like that stupid idiot, whoever he was, who got his wife killed in that CIA thing, because he's determined to know something. The information gets out that's nobody's business, and somebody suffers for it. And not the one that's gabbing either.
Yeah.
So I think that gets carried to extreme. I know it can go to extreme the other way, but there are limits, or should be.
Do you have anything else you would like to add?
We could tell stories all night.
Well, I know you could.
What we want you to do is to take this
Uh-huh.
and all of that box.
All this material, yeah.
The box is an almost complete set of the study units, so they will take you back to the 50s.
Mm-hmm.
And
Okay.
what you don't want, by all means, feel free to pitch, because we simply can't pack everything. You want to look just for fun as we go through?
Sure.
Just the headlines? I'll hand them to you and you fold them. That way you can see what they are.
Okay.
This one we looked at.
1959. Well, it's,
I don't remember what I did it for, but for some reason we needed a
It's
historical
interesting they
display.
cut Ben's chin off. I would never have done that, but maybe I didn't feel that secure that I could chop him up that way.
See, this is, what year is this? I don't see the year offhand.
Oh, I think that looks like one of my covers.
85.
Yep. Yep. There's Tom Daschle. Yep.
Well, that's Adam Seidel there, too.
Yep. Oh, yes.
There's old Herman Peets. See, I remember.
1980. Yep.
I remember this guy very well.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yes. I don't remember him so well because he was already, well, he had gone blind, I think, if I remember right.
Now, on this
Wasn't
group,
so active anymore.
apparently I've gone down and written in the names of mine. See if you look close on those skirts.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
There's times when I think it's only been 1 year when we haven't had a torch bearer. That was last
Yep.
year. This year they should have 3 if they carry through.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
Here's the old state camp.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, there's Abel Lorix and Kenny Bergen. See, this is state camp, and that's those two are mine.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
I think it was John's. You can do what you think with it.
Well, it's pretty well shot.
Use it for packing or something. Use your judgment. Laurie. Here's an 85 cap. And here's the envelope. Let's see.
Okay.
I don't know what the occasion was, but it made a pretty...
This is a group here. Oops, I've got one of them.
They all
That's
fold in
what's
the
wrong.
middle.
They all fold
It
in.
was a display that we got up for something.
Okay.
And the rest, I think they're all books.
All right.
Oh, there's the one scroll. They don't give that out anymore, do
Oh,
they?
yeah. Okay.
As
okay.
I say, what you don't need, you can ditch.
All right. Well, I'm going to put my little concluding touch on here now. We've been visiting with Joan Hafner. Joan, thanks for taking part in the Cooperative Legacy Project, and good luck to you in Texas, and we'll certainly continue to be communicating here.
Keep me on the list for the paper.
Oh, absolutely. 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 Absolutely.